Hey everybody, welcome into the Horseshoe. Oregon 35, Ohio State 28. This is Rapid Reaction, is brought to you by Byers Auto. Not the outcome that any of the four of us predicted, and hard to really put any kind of silver lining on what happened to Ohio State here today. The defense absolutely collapsed, pretty much the third time in a row that you could say that. The offense wasn't able to make up the slack, couple fourth downs that they wanted. They couldn't get it done. And then the coaching staff trying to search for some answers afterwards to explain what happened. Ohio State can certainly go on and still win the Big Ten. They could run the table like they did in 2014. Haskell Garrett, team captain, said that afterwards. If they did in 14, they lost week 2 in this building, went on to hoist that trophy. Sure, why not try that again in 21? But this team, Birm, Spencer Holbrook, Tim May, I'm Austin Ward, they have a lot of things that they need to answer before we can talk about that.
Honestly, it just felt like watching 2018 all over again. You see the quarterback number 7 back there throwing for 500 yards. You're putting him in a position, though, that he has to be absolutely perfect. And C.J. Stroud was not absolutely perfect. He has struggled with the overthrows a couple times. That kind of ended the game. That was the final nail when he threw the interception at the end. But you know, for Ohio State, a couple drop passes that could have been big plays. Cade Stover, Jeremy Rucker, both drop touchdowns essentially. Chris Olave had one on a big play that was dropped. The Buckeyes offense needs to be perfect if the defense plays like this, and the offense was pretty damn good, but not good enough to save what a defense that just looks lost.
Yeah, and despite everything that the defense did terribly incorrect and wrong, Ohio State was an overthrow to Garrett Wilson away from tying this game with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and then you talk about, you know, just a one-possession game and anything could happen there. So while everything looks terrible right now and the defense looks like it's absolutely lost, like Birm said, you think if that pass gets completed, then you go into a tie game with 4 minutes left, you send your defense back out, which actually showed some life when Oregon got a little tight, because I do think Oregon tightened up a little bit. Yeah. Anything could have happened there, and that's not to excuse anything that did happen, but I guess there are a couple silver linings here, but I don't think that's what we're here for.
There come games in your career as a coach or as a player where you've just, in essence, you've got to outscore the other team because your defense isn't getting it done on a consistent basis. And then when your defense gave you a couple of chances there late to really turn the tables, maybe even get it to overtime, then your offense, which had to be perfect in the come from behind, the comeback, wasn't perfect when it really needed to be perfect. And that kind of sums it up. But I did not expect Oregon to have as much success offensively as they did in this game. I did not expect Ohio State to run up over 600 yards of offense and only score 28 points. The inefficiency there is stark for anyone. At one point they finally converted a fourth down. We're 1 out of 4 on fourth downs. Those are kind of the stats that kind of jump out at me. I'm talking about to that point. But like I just get back to, sometimes there's a game where your defense isn't getting it done and you just got to step up and outscore everybody. That didn't happen either today.
Yeah, and I don't, to point that to the offense is hard. I mean, yes, there was a penalty on
I'm not laying it all on the
I know
offense,
you're not.
yeah.
I know you're not. But
28 as opposed to 40.
The other part of that then comes back to the coaching. So schematically, Ohio State was completely outclassed, certainly on defense. There were decisions for Ryan Day. This is the first time. Normally you stand there and you log the aggression. He goes for the gusto. He's not scared to make those big calls and throw it even on 4th and 1. We've seen that in big games. Well, I mean, maybe this is a different looking situation if you kick a couple field goals. I don't know. I'm not going to – this isn't the point to second guess that particularly because there were so many other things that caused that. To dwell on that would be pointless. Kerry Combs did come up to the post-game press conference. You have to give him some credit for owning up to that, and which he did. He said that this is on him. I wanted to wait, and people that have watched these shows said that I'm taking it too easy on him.
Too knee-jerk?
I wanted to wait until he had a full complement of players that he wanted available to him, and Josh Proctor was not 100%, but he basically had that today, and they were lost. And the continuing freewheeling, line changes, substitutions were still there. There were players on the field who definitely did not deserve to play in a top 25 game on the field. And I don't know how that happens when you know that you have 2, 3, 4, 10 games after this where you're going to be a double-digit favorite and you have to win today. Yeah. And the Silver Bullets, that you didn't earn that moniker today.
I asked him about that. In game, I mean, everybody's wondering why are you running so many players in there and stuff. And there wasn't really a clear answer except I think the idea was maybe they deserve it. to play for whatever reason. I think I agree with you on who is and who isn't worthy. Right around down the line, he tried to, semi-explain some things, but the main thing he says is it's on him. And when a team runs, and pardon my analogy or to the Hoosiers film, but when they run the swinging gate on you 3 times around the same left end, and the guy goes almost untouched for touchdowns each time, wow. There's some teaching that's not getting done. Something's not getting done. Scheme-wise, Taraji Mitchell says the scheme's there. So, where do you go now?
I mean, you go to a different scheme, clearly, because it wasn't there. And no matter how many times you try to put makeup on the pig, it's still a pig. And, this sort of game is just one of those moments where, again, you've seen Ohio State in the last handful of years where they had that game. It just didn't feel right. And kudos to Ryan Day and the offense for keeping it close, because this one felt like Purdue to me, honestly, where you're just watching it going, can we get anything to happen correctly? And the offense in the Purdue game in 2018 couldn't make that happen. They couldn't keep it close. But, CJ Stroud balled. I mean, the guy played really hard. I do think that obviously a young quarterback, those overthrows, if you're going to miss, you miss short. You don't miss over the top, and especially in a key part of the game. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, these guys were all great, but if the offensive line, which hadn't let anyone touch C.J. Stroud all year, gives up 2 sacks in the last 4 minutes,
even the throw that Spencer mentioned to Garrett Wilson, he had to adjust and he couldn't step into the throw because there was another person in his face. There is blame, what you're saying, to go around for the entire roster to think that it should be focused on C.J. Stroud or the people that are already suggesting Quinn Ewers. That is 100% not realistic, and quarterback play was not the problem for Ohio State.
No, definitely not. This was not, again, I'm going to go back to that Purdue game. Ohio State had multiple opportunities to score touchdowns and didn't. In this game, they had the same situation. You just can't, you can't lose points when you're in this part of the field. And the Buckeyes, you can point to potentially missed calls. I mean, obviously people are always going to harp on those. Chris Olave was dragged down on the 4th and 2 in that end zone. Chris Olave was targeted and speared by Noah Sewell.
I reviewed that according to.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how you look at that. I don't know what targeting is, but I know that was it.
Yeah, that's the crown of the helmet. That's supposed to be it.
And I'm going to take it back to the other side of the ball. We heard throughout training camp that this team was thin at linebacker. Even the coaches, I think, even admitted at times this team was thin at linebacker. And then you look out there, and there are 5, 6, 7 guys rolling in at linebacker. Yeah. Are you thin or are you not? Do you have guys that can play or do you not? And so that's one of the things for me that is so puzzling about this roster right now is they preached that they were thin at linebacker. They had to get answers at linebacker. Yet they're just continuing to play 7 guys as if it's the deepest unit on the roster.
But when it's also very clear that Taraji Mitchell and Cody Simon are the best players at the position.
Yes.
But you know what?
And that's
near the end. I think they played Cody and Taraji Mitchell. That's pretty straightforward.
But you can't do that only in the situation where where you're in the oops, I crap my pants situation.
You do that next week, but you don't do it in a week like this. This is a harbinger game.
You have Tulsa and you have Akron on the schedule. Tulsa just lost to an FCS school, and Akron hasn't won a game since I was in the womb. They suck. You can do that against those two. You can do that against those 2 schools. You cannot do that against Oregon, and they did it anyways. And so the puzzling nature of this defense, I don't know how you fix it, but you've got 2 weeks now against abysmal opponents to do it.
Ryan Day said last week that they were trying to get through Minnesota and Oregon and then figure it out. And I wrote about it last Friday. You don't have that luxury when this game was on the schedule. You had to have a plan. And if you only played 14 guys on defense today, so what? If they're the best 14 guys, there's a litany of things we could talk about.
Yeah, but let's get right to the point. I mean, we know social media is all out for Kerry Combs right now. Does Ryan Day does he harbor the thought over the weekend of a change at the defensive coordinator position? So what would that change be?
I don't see how that's possible at this point. I think clearly he has to get more involved in what's happening with the defense as opposed to being the hands-off approach he's taken. But, we talked about it, 3 weeks ago. We said, that front 4 had to be the standard bearer for the defense while everyone else sort of figured out. I thought the defensive backs played pretty good today. Anthony Brown was less than 50% completions. He didn't tear up Ohio State through the pass. There was a couple open spots in the middle of the field, but that's the linebackers who don't know where they're supposed to be, and a safety that your starting safety breaks his leg and is out for the rest of his Ohio State career. So now you got to fix things. But that front four, Tyreek Smith, Zach Harrison, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Haskell Garrett, these guys got to make plays. No one is.
Which play stung more, you think? Austin, I'm asking you this. Those swinging gates around the left side 3 times in different ways. I also snuck a tight end out on the same kind of look and got a first down going. Or was that run by C.J. Verdell right up the middle?
I think it's got to be challenging
wow.
Ohio State in the middle. Like, they got the scheme thing. I've seen that before.
The one high safety.
You give credit to Joe Moorhead when he gets that stuff. Hey, if Ohio State's not going to adjust and correct their alignment issues, then you continue to take advantage of that. But if you're running right up the middle at them, and we saw that very same thing happen to Ohio State and Minnesota, what Berm is talking about for the front four, for the linebackers, for the front seven, that is a manhood test right there.
Yeah.
And that's where Ohio State's personnel in no situation should have been outclassed by Oregon. Whatever happened today, and Oregon played very hard, they played very well, they're a top 25 team. Berm can bring up the recruiting rankings if he wants. 1 through 85, Ohio State had probably 83 of the best players on the field today.
Especially considering Oregon's top 2 defensive players didn't play.
Yeah. Well, getting back to scheme then.
All right, Spencer's in over here.
So many times, getting back to scheme though, on so many plays, where are the linebackers? I mean, that is a question that keeps reverberating, and that one high safety is doing them no good.
I'm not going to stand on this field and continue to talk for the entire evening. Nobody wants that. But the last thing I'll say is, I wonder if it's time for Ryan Day to sit Kerry Combs down and say, listen, I know you love being the energy bringer. I know you love being on the field. Maybe it's time to go up in the box and have a different view of seeing things. If you're going to be the defensive coordinator and make all these tough calls and have to see everything that's going on, I know he loves being the guy in 30-degree weather that's sleeveless, and he loves being that guy who's in everybody's face. But there comes a moment where the defensive coordinator needs to be a defensive coordinator, and I wonder if it's time for him to go up in the box. And that's just a weird, small thing, but it also can make a big difference if a guy can see things from a different perspective.
Tim, to answer the question that you asked to kick it all off.
Where are the linebackers? Oh, that was left out.
I don't think Ryan Day is going to make that sort of snap, knee-jerk reaction to make a move with Kerry Combs.
Yeah. I don't either, but
if he did, you asked the question.
Yeah.
The only reason that Ohio State could even consider it, which I don't think they will, is that he brought in someone with defensive coordinator experience to be an analyst this offseason.
Right.
So I don't think you magically make a change after 2 weeks and Paul Rhodes takes over and you kick Kerry Combs with everything he's accomplished to the side of the road.
Agreed.
But this group collaboratively, and Paul Rhodes has to be a part of that behind the scenes. He's limited in what he can and cannot do in that role. Whether that should be the case for college football is a different conversation.
Safety look, though, what is your take on that? I've had so many of my buddies who think that is so stupid to play a one-eye safety. They don't remember hardly anybody having success with that.
I remember somebody who did.
I do too. But he's a head coach at Boston
But
College.
it doesn't, if you don't have a safety who is a game-changing,
but that's no personnel.
mistake-erasing safety,
Yeah.
then you can't run it. And Jordan Fuller ain't walking down this tunnel, you know? So at some point, Ohio State is going to have some hard conversations. And Ryan Day is going to need to sit Kerry Combs, Paul Rhodes, Matt Barnes, Al Washington, Larry Johnson, everyone. What is going on with this defense? Because this is, as you said at the top, 3 straight games now where they've not only been challenged defensively, but they have been just toyed with defensively, and that's a major concern.
And to add insult to injury, I don't think Alabama whipped them up front. Not entirely. I don't think Minnesota whipped them up front. Oregon whipped them up front. I mean, Oregon got what it wanted on the offensive line as part of their run game, and when they wanted to get to C.J. Stroud late in the game, they got there.
Yeah.
They sold out a few times to get there too.
Ohio State didn't get close to Anthony Brown.
Didn't get it done.
No.
And now Ohio State loses all margin for error, trying to get back to the college football playoff. They're talking already about getting to Indy. All that's still in front of them. We'll have a lot more to talk about when we get back into Lettermen Live, the Tim May podcast. Weekend kickoff previewing next week, which should be interesting, but probably not as informative for Ohio State. They've got to regroup in a hurry and obviously in a major way. This, though, has been Rapid Reaction. It is brought to you by Byers Auto. That is Spencer Holbrook, Tim May, Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. That's a wrap on Oregon 35, Ohio State 28. Stay tuned for more coverage at LettermenRow.com.